So as a duelist in Marvel Rivals, it's your job to get kills in your team. You are supposed to be the highest damage output that is on your team, and there's a couple of different ways you can do this, especially with the different styles of duelists that we have within Marvel Rivals. And this video is going to teach you how to play duelists so well that the enemy team rage quits. So to understand the duelist category, this is what we need to know. There's two different types of duelist within Marvel Rivals. We have our cooldown based duelists. So these are going to be like Black Panther, Magic, Mr. Fantastic, Spider-Man, Iron Fist, and Wolverine to some extent as well. And then we have our sustained damage duelists, which are going to be Hela, Hawkeye, Namor, Moon Knight, Iron Man, anyone that can basically output constant damage with their primary or secondary fires, and they're not really having any downtime when they're dealing damage. So sustained damage duelists are up first, and we're going to talk about aim first. And the reason why I want to talk about aim is because there's a lot of heroes in this game that actually require no aim, or there's heroes that require to have some aim. Now, the ones that require aim are going to deal more damage, and that is just generally how this game goes. And the ones that don't require much aim don't deal as much damage. And I think that's a fair balance, and you need to understand which one you need to use, and you need to understand whether or not you have good aim or not. Now, I always recommend going into the practice range, practicing your aim to get good so you can use pretty much any hero in this entire game. But like I said, you've got heroes like Scarlet Witch and Squirrel Girl who require little to no aim whatsoever. Even Iron Man fits in this category as well because he does a lot of splash damage with his primary fires. So you do not need to have good aim to use any of these heroes that I've just mentioned. Then there's going to be heroes like Namor or Hela or Hawkeye or Black Widow, where you do need to have good aim to use these heroes. Now, of course, these heroes are going to be dealing way more damage with their attacks because they require aim. Now, some of these heroes in this game, like Namor and also Moon Knight as well, basically do have some kind of aimbot attack as well, so it makes it a little bit easier to play these heroes. And mainly is an anti-dive mechanic, which we'll go on to later on in this video. But if you have good aim, even with Moon Knight, for example, to use his primary attacks, you're going to be getting a lot more kills than if you're just relying on your unk usage, because you don't get your unks all the time. Keep that in mind. You want to be outputting as much damage consistently as possible, and that is what these heroes are there for. So like I said, you want to be applying constant pressure with these type of heroes because it's so easy to do. The primary fires reload very quickly. You're going to have a lot of primary fires. Some of them, even like Namor, require no reloads at all. So you just want to constantly be putting damage down range, attacking the enemy team, and just making sure you are a presence in your team. You don't want to have any downtime whatsoever when you're playing these heroes. You'll get the most amount of damage, and obviously that's what you're there for. And you also get kills by doing this and playing this way. And I think that is one thing people need to understand, is when you're constantly applying pressure and dealing damage to the enemy team, they can't really out heal that, especially when the rest of your team's also dealing damage as well. Now let's talk about positioning when it comes to sustained damage duelist. And there's two key positions that you can hold with these type of heroes. Now the first one is behind your team's front line. This is the best one and the most important one in my opinion. The reason for that is because this works in every single rank you play in, whether it's bronze rank or if you're playing in the highest of high ranks. Essentially, this is the easiest one because your supports can easily heal you when you're right in front of them, and a lot of supports in lower ranks won't look around to try and heal you up. They just want to heal what's in front of them, and that is why they constantly heal bot the tanks. So if you're sitting just in front of your tank and you're outputting damage, you're also not going to die as well because your supports will be healing you. And you do want to play to your supports' strengths, and like I said, if you're right in front of them, they can't really miss you. So that is why this is one of the key areas to play in. And not only that, you've got a good line of sight of the enemy team, which obviously is going to be amazing. You're going to be outputting constantly sustained damage, like I just mentioned. The next position you want to take up as a constant sustained duelist is high ground. The high ground gives you a better view of the battlefield, whether it comes to your team or the enemy team. And what's good about this is that you can basically pick your targets very easily in high ground, and it's extremely useful to play there. Like I said, you can see if the enemy team is trying to dive your team as well. And it is your job to deal with this and peel for your team, and we'll get on into that in a moment as well. But like I said, high ground is extremely useful even in this game, but it's a bit more difficult to play, especially if the enemy team is running a dive comp and they just keep destroying you, or if your supports are really not supporting you that much either. You need to keep that in mind and adjust your playstyle accordingly. Now, obviously, players like Black Widow and Hawkeye will benefit greatly from high ground and playing there, because getting an easier line of sight on the enemy and dealing damage is going to be so much better from higher up, of course. And most of these heroes do have some kind of anti-dive mechanic. Moon Knight, you can throw your Unk on yourself and just kind of throw damage down that way. Namor's got his squids, Hela's got her teleport, Iron Man's got his uni beam, Hawkeye's got his kind of kick slash, and Black Widow's got a similar thing as well. The next thing I want to talk about is off angles quickly, and this is going to benefit certain heroes more than others. With someone like Hela and Namor, you can play very direct, and that's why people like playing these heroes, because they're super easy to understand, especially with the kind of playstyle that they have. You can just output tons of damage, you don't need to worry too much. Now, when it comes to someone like Moon Knight, Psylocke, and even maybe Star-Lord to some extent, then you kind of want to play off angles. Now, the reason for that is because you're going to get better angles on the enemy team. So the enemy team's going to be focused in one direction, and that is mainly in front of them, right? For the most part. Not a lot of people tend to look around in this game because most of the fight is happening in front of them, especially if they're playing a Magneto and a Doctor Strange, or a Emma Frost and a Magneto. And this is like a frontline tank composition. And this is why people struggle to play with dive as well, by the way. But when it comes to this whole kind of frontline thing, most people tend to output damage in the front, and the shields go up constantly, so you can't get any kills because there's too much protection on both sides. So if you're the hero that has got the kind of off angle position, then you want to be able to deal damage to the enemy team where they don't expect it from. So if they're looking forward and you're kind of positioned off to the left or to the right of the entire fight, then you're going to get some easy kills doing this because no one's even looking at you. Essentially, you're flanking, but without putting yourself in harm's way. You don't need to kind of dive straight in and deal damage to them. You can just kind of deal some poke damage on the side when they go low, pick those heroes off, and get some easy kills. Now, this brings me on into target priority for sustained fire duelists. Now, it's all fine and well you dumping tons of damage into a tank and then they get healed up again. That is no value whatsoever. Now, you might end the game with 100,000 damage, but that does not mean you did anything valuable for your team. You want to focus on getting eliminations and kills over dealing damage. Now, I know it sounds a bit silly because you need to deal damage to get that, but if you get loads of final kills and final hits or whatever it's called, and you've got like 50 plus kills with maybe only like 40k damage, it means you're being very efficient with your kills and you're killing targets and progressing the game forward. And trust me, you'll be winning a lot more games doing this than just dumping all your damage into a tank, which is not going to help. Now, when it comes to target priority, you want to first go through this list. I would focus on the low HP targets. So let's say this is support and they've only got maybe half their health. Try and focus on killing them first. Even if it's a tank and they've got quarter health, focus on them first instead. You don't need to always go for supports. I know all the tutorials in the world will tell you focus supports first, but realistically, you want to kill an enemy player. That is the whole job of your role. You literally want to kill the enemy team. So focus on who's low first, get them out. Once you've done that, they're down a player, and now your team has the advantage. You're only going to get more kills after this. So focus on getting one guy out at a time and focus on who's the lowest at the time. And that is going to allow you to do way better. So that is the first priority, is who's low. Then you focus on who's uncontested. So uncontested means if there's a player that's kind of off doing his own thing, he's kind of trying to pull off a flank. Maybe it's a Psylocke, for example. She's got no support with her. And you can then focus on that target because she's likely to die very easily. If you're bundled with your team, you're in a good position, you could easily take her out and delete her. Maybe if you've got Moon Knight Unk, you'll throw it down, kill her quickly, and move on. That is an uncontested player. So that is an example of an uncontested player where they're kind of off, not with their team, and you could easily kill them. Then you want to focus the support, right? After that, you try and kill the backline so that the enemy team cannot get healed up nearly as much. And then I would say DPS and then the tanks. Now, as much as the tanks are right up in your face and they're going to be the most annoying to deal with, and obviously you still should shoot them, try and push them back off of you. I'm not saying don't deal damage to them. I'm just saying mainly focus on the other targets. As a sustained fire duelist, it's your job to peel for your team. Now, what even is peeling, first of all? Now, peeling is essentially you turning around to help your support when they're getting dived on or when they're getting attacked in general, right? So you need to help your support help you, because they're the ones that are healing you up, healing your team up. And the reason why it's your job to do this and not anyone else's is because the tanks are usually focused in the front line, and that is their job to do, to keep the protection going in the front line, keep the push going forward. You're going to output the most amount of damage. You're going to be able to kill that diver the quickest because you output more damage, like I just said. And also, you've got better movement, right? Most of the tanks in this game move relatively slow, depending on which one you're talking about. Some of them can obviously peel as well. But for the most part, most of the DPS in this game move really quickly. So you can turn around, instantly delete that target, and then go back to doing what you were doing in the first place. Plus, you have constant sustained damage. You might not need to reload at all. You might only get a quick reload in, and then you can start firing back and dealing damage in your original position, essentially. So there's less of a kind of downtime for you. Next, we've got our cooldown duelist. Now, this kind of encompasses a few different types of heroes, in my opinion. So we've got Black Panther, Magic, Spider-Man, Iron Fist. I think Psylocke fits in there as well. Mr. Fantastic also fits in there, by the way. Star-Lord and Wolverine. So there's some that are a bit more difficult to use than others. Mr. Fantastic and Psylocke can kind of interchange into different roles. So Mr. Fantastic can kind of be a tank in the front line. Psylocke can be a ranged kind of duelist as well. But when it comes to the other ones here, and the reason why Psylocke is so good is because she fits many different roles. So that is why people like using this hero. A bit more forgiving as well. But let's talk about heroes like Black Panther, Spider-Man, and Magic here, Iron Fist as well. Now, the whole point of these heroes is that they output burst damage in the enemy team's backline. They've got a lot of movement tech to get them into the enemy team's backline, deal tons of damage, get a pick or two, and leave. That is their whole role. Now, how do you actually achieve this? Now, first of all, positioning is key for these heroes. It's probably the most important thing. And the way you want to do this is play the off angles. You want to kind of position yourself to the left or the right of the enemy team. When they're being distracted by that frontline fight, you then dive down onto them and deal as much damage as you can before you die, and then leave, essentially, is what you're trying to do. Get a pick or two. Now, like I said, high ground positioning for these heroes is key. Also, positioning near health packs is super important, and that is the reason why Iron Fist in this new season 2 is probably the best dive hero in the game, in my opinion, because he's got so much more self-sustain than the rest of the kind of dive characters on this list, right? Now, this is where target priority is most important for these type of heroes, because you do want to focus on the supports and the DPS that is causing your team the most amount of problems. Now, you would notice this in games where a Black Panther is diving supports, where the enemy team is getting healed up far too much, and you're not getting any picks whatsoever. People then tend to switch to Black Panther and try and dive the enemy team's backline. And the same goes for Spider-Man as well. Basically, they're very much the same. Iron Fist is also really good as well. You see a lot of your teammates switching to Iron Fist if you get to the higher levels. So try and take out maybe an annoying Iron Man or flying hero. So that is something to keep in mind, is when you're trying to counter the most annoying player in the enemy team. And like I said, that is going to either be a support that's healing up too much, or a DPS that's dealing too much damage to your team. And that is how target priority works when you're playing these kind of dive or burst damage duelist. That is what you're aiming for. Now, obviously, you can aim for a hero that is low, so you can get a pretty easy pick and kill there as well. But like I said, your main focus is for the most annoying person in the enemy team, essentially. I think that is the way to describe it best. So these next 2 points is what's going to separate an amazing burst duelist to a not so good burst duelist. Now, the first one is staying alive. Now, you want to stay alive as much as you can because you're off by yourself doing your own thing, right? You're not going to be with your team 90% of the time like everyone else is going to be. and you're not going to be able to position yourself in front of your healers constantly because you're obviously going to be diving the enemy backline. So you need to figure out other ways to keep yourself alive. Now, first of all, you can use your movement tech. That is one of the main things, probably the most important one. So understand your hero's kit, understand their movement tech, what they're good at, what they're bad at, and that will keep you alive a lot longer. For example, Black Panther, you need to do his combo, you keep his final dash to escape, that kind of thing. Iron Fist can use his spinning kick to get away, or you can use your fast punches to get away. Magic has her portals, Psylocke has her dashes, Star-Lord has his flips or even his jetpack. Wolverine has his basically 2-second cooldown kind of dash thing that he has. So you need to know that you need to use these abilities to escape from a fight when you need to. That will keep you alive. Playing health packs as well is going to keep you alive. So understanding the map, you need to have really good map knowledge with these type of heroes. And the thing is, even when I say play health packs, don't play the health packs that are like a country mile away from your team or a country mile away from the fight. You want to play the closest health pack to you so you can get straight back into the fight. You don't want to be out of the action for too long. This is the most annoying thing, by the way. And this is basically my other point, is constant pressure. Now, constant pressure with these type of heroes is the most difficult thing to do because, like I said, they're based around cooldowns, and most of the cooldowns in this game are around about 10 seconds or so to get them back. So let's say you're out of the fight for at least 10 seconds. Your team's doing their thing, they're doing the job correctly. There's an enemy player that's 1 HP, and if you had your cooldowns, you would have got the kill, but you don't have your cooldowns at this point in time. So this is where it becomes a bit more difficult because you need to understand and manage your cooldowns well enough that you never have that much downtime, and you don't want to have any downtime even with these dive heroes. And this is why I think Iron Fist is the best, to be honest. If you want to dive in Season 2 of Marvel Rivals, Iron Fist is the best hero because he can heal himself, get straight back into the fight. His primary attack does so much damage, his secondary attack does so much damage, and he's never out of the fight. And this is why I think Iron Fist is the best. Whereas compared to someone like Spider-Man and Black Panther, for example, where if you miss your web sling or you miss like one of your dashes or spears or something like that, that's you out of the fight for at least 5 to 10 seconds. Like, you're not going to be able to do very much there. For these type of heroes, timing is super important as well. Now, what does timing actually mean? Now, you want to wait when your team and the enemy team is engaged in a fight and most of the players are distracted. If you try to dive the enemy backline before this even happens, you're essentially going to die because the only thing they have to focus on is you. And then at that point, you're a low HP target, and it doesn't matter how fast you move, if everyone is focusing you all at once, you are going to die. It doesn't matter how good you are. So like I said, you want to wait until there is at least half of the enemy team engaging in a fight with your team, and at that point is when you dive in to start causing chaos in the backline, because at that point the DPS on the enemy team and the tanks on the enemy team are already distracted. You can focus on taking out the supports or one of the other DPS heroes, and in a 1v1 fight, most of the dive heroes win against a ranged DPS 90% of the time, unless the player you're coming up against is super skilled, or if they're getting support from one of their healers, or if they're getting a bit of peeling from one of their tanks. But like I said, in a straight 1v1, you pretty much almost never lose, and that is kind of the way these heroes are supposed to be played. So like I said, you want to make sure you time it correctly, where most of the players are distracted and they're in an engagement already. And not only that, they will be slightly lower HP as well, so it makes your job a little bit easier when you're trying to get those kills. Now let's use Black Panther as an example here, because I think this is super important to understand, and I want to teach you how to have sustained impact on a game, sustained pressure on the enemy team. Now, first of all, Black Panther is great if you're landing all your combos, you're doing your spear dash, you're doing all that good stuff, you're landing everything, you're getting your vibranium marks. It's all cool and good, and you know you're the king of the world because you've landed your full combo. Now, if you don't land your full combo, maybe you miss a spear, maybe you miss a dash, whatever it is, and you're still full HP, right? You've not taken any damage at this point because Black Panther is very hard to hit. Then stay in the fight a little bit longer. Deal some primary attack damage. Hit him with a 1-2 of your primary. You don't need to deal loads of damage. Just be there. Then you want to run around. You want to scale the walls, double jump off the walls, be hard to hit. What this is going to do is at least distract the enemy team, right? You're going to at least be a distraction whilst you've got full HP. If you're super low, then by all means leave the fight. But like I said, when you are full HP, you've just missed your combo, stay in the fight a little bit longer. You'll buy yourself a bit of extra time in a good position, then hopefully redo your combo again. Or what you can do is just scale the walls, be a nuisance to the enemy team so they have something else to focus on other than your team's front line. That is still sustained pressure. You don't need to be dealing damage. You just need to be a distraction. And then another way you can do this as well is instead of running around looking for a health pack, go back to your team's kind of front line or in between the front line and the back line to get healed up. Now, it's going to look like you're still part of the action. Now, obviously, you know you don't have any cooldowns ready. The enemy team does not know that. So if you go back there, get healed up from your teammates, it looks like there's a 6 stack still together, still playing with each other. Even though you have no ranged attacks whatsoever, for the most part, you're still part of your team. You're going to stay alive because you're grouped with your team, obviously, for the most part. And then what you do is you dive straight back in and do your combos all over again. Now, like I said, sustained pressure is not sustained damage. It's just you being in the action. Everyone hates when a Spider-Man goes off, flies halfway across the map, he's doing nothing useful, and we don't see him for like at least 5 minutes, right? That is the most annoying thing to play with on your team and why people hate having a Black Panther and a Spider-Man on their team, because there's no sustained pressure there whatsoever. And this is why I think Iron Fist is actually the best in Season 2, because he can heal himself up, which is absolutely insane. He's got tons of overshield, and even his primary attack does loads of damage. Is be present in the fight, because if you're not present, the enemy team is essentially playing a 6v5 and you're going to lose. So there we have it. That is all the tips to play Duelist inside Marvel Rivals. If you learned something new from this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you very much for watching.